Dear brothers, what's happening, guys? So, I was having a very good conversation, which I will admit on this show to you guys. If you have clients or you work with other men, don't be afraid to ask them about their lives or experiences that they've had. And I know you shouldn't, and you're not trying to like make buddy-buddy with everyone that you meet, but if you meet a man who is interesting or seems kind of dynamic, ask them about their lives, what they've done, what they've struggled through. You'll be amazed at the amount of wisdom that you get. I think we've really screwed up how we view older men in America specifically as just like dumb and old and they're not very smart. But there's a lot of wisdom you can pull from men in this world. And so I encourage you, if you guys meet people who are like, they seem like rad folks, they seem like good men, ask them about their lives, how they raised their kids, how they figured out college, how they got through work, whatever. I think it's really valuable. And I say all that because I have a lot of clients who I work with that it is amazing how much great knowledge that I've been able to pull from them. So that's actually what our topic is a little bit today. So I was having a good conversation with a client of mine, and we got talking about a friend of his who is highly successful, very wealthy, has made his way up in the world, started with nothing, and now has a gigantic, very successful company. And my buddy was saying that he is an incredible friend who would do anything for his people. And he loved his employees and gave them extra time off and saved them when they were in trouble. Just a good guy. But his home life sucked. His wife has cheated on him. His oldest son is a drug addict. And really his only kid who's done anything is like his right-hand man at work because he basically forced him to get into the job so that he didn't go another direction. And so as we kept talking, I asked my client, do you think that your buddy is a good man? And he thought about it for a second and he got back to me and said, I think that he's a good friend. I think that he's a great owner to his employees. He's a great businessman, but he just wasn't a very good dad and he wasn't a very good husband. After we finished that conversation, I had to go back and look through my books because there was something that stuck out to me about that conversation. And I've already mentioned this book this week. And for those of you that have never heard of it or don't know it, As a Man Thinketh by James Allen is a must read in my mind. And there's a passage in there that I want to read to you guys today that really embodies this whole conversation. And it's been pivotal in my own life in how I judge other men. And in there, James Allen says this: a man may be honest in certain directions, yet suffer privations. A man may be dishonest in certain directions, yet acquire wealth. But the conclusion usually formed that the one man fails because of his particular honesty, and that the other prospers because of his particular dishonesty, is the result of a superficial judgment, which assumes that the dishonest man is almost totally corrupt, and the honest man almost entirely virtuous. In the light of a deeper knowledge and wider experience, such judgment is found to be erroneous. The dishonest man may have some admirable virtues, which the other does not possess, and the honest man obnoxious vices, which are absent in the other. The honest man reaps the good results of his honest thoughts and acts. He also brings upon himself the suffering that his vices produce. The dishonest man likewise garners his own suffering and happiness. It is pleasing to human vanity to believe that one suffers because of one's virtue, but not until a man has extricated every sickly, bitter, and impure thought from his mind and washed every sinful stain from his soul can he be in a position to know and declare that his sufferings are a result of his good and not of his bad qualities. I also said extricated. It's extirpated. Extirpated is a much better word. But nonetheless, you get the idea. It can be so easy to judge a man based on something poor or bad about them. If we know someone suffers with alcoholism, or they're obscenely rude, or they're addicted to something, we label them as quote unquote bad. But how many of you have known a man who is an excellent father, or they're a great friend, or they work their asses off, or they show kindness beyond compare, but they have other problems in their life that you knew nothing about, that once you're told, you're like, oh my gosh, I thought that person was so great, and yet look what they did. We like to think that because someone has a singular virtue or several of them as being good, but all of the good in their lives comes strictly from those couple of virtues. But when we look at someone who's struggling with, say, alcoholism, we say that all of their issues are because of that. And maybe to a point, a lot of their issues do come from that. But we forget that each and every man is born with an inclination to evils and the ability to resist them. Some are better at doing that than others, and that takes an incredible amount of practice. Yet, we tend to fault those who we see that have these terrible vices and give no mind to those people that we believe have great virtues, forgetting that both men are capable of both. We will only reap the results of our good thoughts and actions when we act good. Vice versa we will only reap the terrible results of our evil thoughts and actions when we act foul. James Allen says this much better than I can. Nothing can come from corn but corn. Nothing from nettles but nettles. You can't get good from bad and bad from good. But I really want to follow this line of judgment as it pertains to our judgments today. How can we judge another man when we don't know all of their character, all of their virtues and vices laid out before us? I have met plenty of men, as most of you probably have, who are arrogant, unkind, spiteful, rude, but they do acts of unimaginable kindness behind closed doors. I have seen men addicted to heavy narcotics, and yet they give their life for another person that they don't even know. I've seen men commit adultery while also being incredible fathers and friends. So my point today to you guys is that we do not know the wholeness of someone's character. We do not know the entirety of their vices and virtues, but we are so quick to judge them with the little information that we tend to have about them. First thing, judging too quickly is the sign of a foolish man. Without knowing as many facts as you can, judgment should always be reserved for a later date. Epictetus discusses this when he talks about impressions, that what we see in the world is just impressions. They're just interpretations of a thing with little to no knowledge about it. We have to analyze it, assess it more fully before we start making decisions about it. Second of all, remember that a man is a comportment of his virtue and vice. He is a collection of those things. Ideally, the virtues outnumber the vices, but every man will still have them. Remember that our birthright is the capability of sin. It's unavoidable. So to judge a man for only his sins is like judging the changing of spring to summer. It does you no good. You can do nothing about them. It's going to happen. The most important point of all of this is that we should be gracious with our brothers. Not dishonest, but gracious. All of us suffer privations, as James Allen talks about. All of us have faults which are dark and rotten, actions we're not proud of and usually supremely ashamed of. But that doesn't define us as evil. Those are choices that we can change any given time at any given moment. In the balance of virtue and vice, the only real bankruptcy of the soul that can be found is when we're actively pursuing vice and rejecting virtue. We're choosing supreme amounts of nihilism and evil and basically convincing ourselves that that is what we want. That is good to that person. But a man who's willing to part with his vices, fight them tooth and nail, and look to improve his life through the pursuit of goodness can't fail. So remember to be gentle with others. Be stern when they have their failings, of course. Be a good brother, and sometimes being a good brother is slapping your buddy in the head and being like, hey, get your shit together. But remember that they struggle with evils just as much as you do and might not see it. I encourage all of you to remember one of my favorite quotes from C.S. Lewis, as it has helped me navigate my own foulness across time. Foulness, hell of a word today. C.S. Lewis says this: when a man is getting better, he understands more and more clearly the evil that is still left in him. When a man is getting worse, he understands his own badness less and less. So remember that the more virtuous we can be, the more virtuous we can help our brothers be, the more that they'll see that bad seed in their life. But when we allow that to run rampant, it can control them. But also remember that people aren't just defined by the bad things they've done. Sometimes we write people off far too quickly when we really don't know enough about them. But don't allow vice to ruin your life. Seek goodness, but also remember to seek goodness in other people, in your brothers. Don't judge them for their ills. You have just as many, in all likelihood. Be a disciple to them. Show them a better way. And while you're at it, make sure that you are doing the same thing in your own life. All of us suffer privations. All of us have done bad things. And I wouldn't want the world to judge me based on those things. Should I be judged for them? Sure. But I also shouldn't be judging others for the mistakes that they have made. Sometimes mistakes that are so gruesome that it's impossible to understand them. But that's because we're humans. We don't have some kind of divine knowledge of people. That's God's job. God's job is to be the judge and the jury and everything in between. Our job is to disciple to other men, people that are struggling with difficulties here. We should be discipling to. Go talk to them, preach to them, give them love, give them guidance. Even people that are seemingly awful. That is how we can progress together. We need all the men in this world, and we need them all to stop judging so damn much. Remember that we all have issues. We also all have beautiful virtues. Let's foster those virtues in each other. God bless all of you. I love you. Be strong. Let's get after it today, boys.